Well, hello again. Welcome to our reading of the Acts of the Apostles, and we're up to chapter 18. And so you'll recall that Paul has gone down from northern Greece into Athens. Didn't get a particularly good reception there from the philosophers, and he has decided to move on down to Corinth. You should have a look at maps to these things to follow through his path. Corinth would be several days' walk from Athens. And so it says simply, metatauta choristes ek toneth Athenaion, eothen es Corinthon. So after these things, literally having been separated from chorisdo, this is the aorist passive participle here, so having departed from, having almost said goodbye to Athens, eothen he went into Corinth. Now Corinth had been destroyed in 146 by Mummius, and it lay desolate until it was refounded about 44 BC. It was a very important town in antiquity. But in 44 BC, under an edict of Julius Caesar, it was refounded, and it soon became a seat of commerce in the southern part of Greece and the political capital where the Roman proconsul lived. Corinth was renowned even from classical times for sexual license, and indeed there is a verb korinthiasdo, which means to fornicate, in other words, to play the Corinthian. So it was a pretty rough and ready place. Anyway, Paul goes there to Corinth. Kai Huron tina Iudaion onomati Akulan. And having found a certain Jewish man by name Akulan, which is simply a Hellenized form of the Latin Aquila, he and his wife Priscilla, also called Prisca, are mentioned in Romans 16 as though they were living in Rome. And here he finds them in Corinth. So by the name of Akulan or Aquila, Ponticon to Gene, but he was from the area of Pontus by his race. So he was born in Pontus. Pontus came under Roman rule when Pompey defeated its king Mithridates. Prosphatos, only here in the New Testament, it's quite common in the Septuagint. It means lately. Lately, and eleluthota is the participle from Erchomai, referring back to this Aquila. Him having come lately or recently from Italy, and literally Priscillan, so Priscilla, his wife, dia tetakinai, Claudion Corizeste pantos tus Iudaios apotes Romes. So this is so he and his wife Priscilla, on account of, now we get dia tot plus, this is a perfect infinitive. It's from dia and tasso. So the verb here, dia tetakinai, is from dia tasso. So having given the order. So perfect infinitive here with this dia tot construction. On account of Claudius having given the order that all the Jews, chorizesthai, must depart, must put distance between themselves, so must leave from Rome. This is the expulsion of the Jews. This expulsion is usually connected with an edict that's mentioned in Suetonius' Life of Claudius, where he says, as the Jews were indulging in constant riots at the instigation of Chrestus, he banished them from Rome. Whether this is a reference to Jesus is not totally secure. But anyway, they had been kicked out of Rome and they found themselves here, and pros Aelthan, he went autois to them, that is, Paul went to them. Kaidia to homotechnon anai emenon para autois. Now, a homotechnon is a common trade. It's only here in the New Testament. It occurs in classical Greek. It means sharing the same trade, same livelihood, which of course was tent making. And because, on account of diatop anai, it's that diatop plus infinitive construction. So on account of there being a common trade, common means of livelihood, eminen, imperfect, he was remaining with them. Kai ergadsato. So this is from ergastomai, and he was working. For, we get an explanatory gar, for Azan, they were scanopoie, makers of tents, te techne, by trade. So they were, by trade, they were makers of tents. You get the skano. Skane is a tent, and then the poi, root of making. So by trade, they were tent makers. De elegator de ente synagoge, and he was debating in the synagogue, katapan sabbatan, each Sabbath. We've seen before the expression katapas on hammer, and each day, this is each Sabbath. And te, he was persuading Jews and Greeks. But when, now the subject here is Silas, we get te and kai. So when Silas and Timothy, when both Silas and Timothy came down from Macedonia, sun aketo, well, literally Paul was constrained to logo by the word. So possibly was occupied with or was absorbed in. So Paul was absorbed in the word, in preaching the word, witnessing to the Jews that Jesus to be the Messiah. Jesus to be the Messiah. Antitassomenon de auton kai blasphemunton. This is genitive absolute here. Antitassomenon, it's almost, it's being opposed to, it's almost a military word. So, but when they, that is, some of the locals presumably, showed opposition and were blaspheming, ek tinaxamenos, literally having shaken off, it's a figurative use, it occurs in the Septuagint, of renunciation. So having shaken his garments, he said to them, your blood, the auto must refer to this eudaios here. So, but when they, the Jewish leaders, the Jews, were opposed and were blaspheming, having shaken his garments, he said to them, your blood, understand, be upon your head. Katharos ego, I am pure. Apot tu nun, from now on, parousamai, I will go, as to ethne. Now, literally to the nations, this is the neuter plural from ethnos, third declension neuter, but it's generally translated as Gentiles. I will go to the Gentiles. And metabas, it's changing his step, so going up from there, he entered into the house of a certain man, Titius Justus by name, one who shows reverence to God, so a God-fearer, of whom, hey oikia, so the house of whom, so whose house was sun or homorusa, literally sharing a common boundary. So probably bordering on, it takes a dative. It's very rare. It only occurs again in later Byzantine writers. It's a rare word. It's from sun homoreo. So his house was bordering on the synagogue, so perhaps it shared a common wall with the synagogue. Crispus, the chief of the synagogue, believed in the Lord. Sun holo to oiko autu, along with his whole house. Kai poloi, and many of the Corinthians, hearing, believed and were baptized. Passive, imperfect passive here. The Lord said in the night, di horamatos. Now, I've seen horama before. It's a divine vision. It's a word used of visions, but generally divine visions. So in the night, through a vision, he said to Paul, "Me phobu, do not fear, alalale, imperative, but speak, kai me siopeses," and this is the subjunctive, and do not, in place of imperative, they're using a subjunctive, so do not be silent. This is from siopao, it's an alpha contract verb. Dioti, because I am with you, and no one will stand against you. 2 plus infinitive, so as to do bad to you, so as to do you harm. This Crispus we've had mentioned is alluded to in 1 Corinthians 1:14. Because there is much, literally there is much people, there is a great group of people for me in this city. So the polus is singular going with laos. There are many people, there is many peoples for me in this city. Ekathisen de eniauton. Literally, he sat for a year and 6 months. So he, it's here in the sense of sit, in the sense of tarry or spend time. It's used in this sense again in Luke 24, and there's a similar usage of it in the book of Ruth in the Septuagint of this kathisto. So he settled there, might be good for this. He settled for a year and 6 months, teaching the word of God among them. Gallionos de anthupatu ontos te Zacchaeus. Now this is a genitive absolute, so gallion and the anthupatu is the Greek form, or the Greek word for a Roman consul. So Gallion, being the consul of Achaia, that is of Greece, kat epistesan. Now, so while he was there, now the subject here is the Jews, and the homothumadon, with one accord, kat episteson, to stand against, so opposed. So the Jews with one accord were opposed to Paul, while Gallio was the consul of Achaia, and they led him epitop to the judgment seat. Bema is literally a step, but here it's used of the judgment seat here and elsewhere in the New Testament, saying that paraton nomon anapathe hutos, this man persuades the men sebesthai ton theon, to show reverence to God, paraton theon, contrary to the law, or perhaps beyond the law or contrary to the law. This is anapathe, it's the only use of anapathe in the New Testament. It has a sense of seduce or mislead in Herodotus. It appears in the Septuagint in the sense of evil persuasion, so it's quite a negative word. So he is persuading them in a bad way. Melontes tu Paulu, genitive absolute again. As Paul was about to anoigain, so melo plus an infinitive. So as Paul was about to anoigain, to open his mouth, Gallio, this is this consul, said to the Jews, Amen ein adikema ti, a araidiorgema poneron, o iudaiu, catalogon an aneskomen hu mon. So if there was some wrongdoing, or rediorgema, this is, you can see the erg root in here of doing something, and the word came originally to mean a prank, or a roguish trick, and then a crime. It's only here in the New Testament, and it's very rare elsewhere. It means to act with ease, to work radios easily, so to act with ease and hence recklessly. There is an abstract noun, radiorgia, which means laziness in other Greek, in Xenophon and Plutarch. It occurs again in Acts 13, I've seen it before, and it has the meaning recklessness. So if there was some wrongdoing, or perhaps some evil act of recklessness, O Jews, aneskomein, I would have borne with you, catalogon, so reasonably, it's an idiomatic here, so adverbial, I would reasonably have borne with you. In other words, if he's actually committed some crime, then I would listen to what you've got to say. But if it is, and it's neuter plural singular verb, so if there are certemata, disputes regarding some word, some story, or names, or your law, the law according to you, obses the autor, you see to it yourselves. So you will see it. This is a future used here for imperative. So you yourselves see to it, but it's a future. Krites ego, I judge those things which, I do not wish to be a krites, a judge, two-tone of these things. So I do not wish to judge these things. And epelasen, this is from ap elauno. This verb here is ap elauno. It's quite an irregular verb in many ways, but it means elauno is to drive. This is ap elauno. This epelasen is the aorist from ap elauno. So he drove them from the judgment seat. Epilabomenoi pantes, and all of them, having taken hold of Sosthenes, the chief of the synagogue, etupton, they began to beat him, from tupto, it's imperfect, empros then to bermatos, in front of the judgment seat. But the subject in this next one, uden two-tone, the subject is uden, none of these things, emelen, was of concern to Gallio. So he sort of washed his hands of the whole thing, he took no interest in it. Gallio was the son of the elder Seneca and brother of the younger Seneca. In 65 he fell under Nero's suspicions along with Seneca, and came to an unhappy end. So here you can see he doesn't want to get involved in local disputes about religious matters. And we'll leave that reading at this point.